Hayden Bema, you're having your lunch, your dinner, I mean. Are you eating? Oh, nice. You're on the bouncy ball. Hey, I can do that now. I should get that. I'm in my new digs. Should get a bouncy ball. Yeah, I've got my because I don't want you to see the ugly room in the background. Let me just see because I'm in this it's not ugly. Where where are you? Are you at home? Yeah, this room isn't terrible, but I'm in Ontario now, so it's eight. This is cool. You're officially the first person I've had a class with outside of the regular time zone, so that's kind of cool. So it's five for you and eight for me. Very cool. How's the internet? Internet okay for you here? Oh boy. You want to take a minute or are you good? Good. I haven't seen in a couple of weeks, I guess. What you're doing? Oh, no worries. I thought this was a pretty tight chapter, actually. I thought I had a lot of fun reading this. Most of the suggestions are kind of like take it or leave it. For example, here at the beginning, I love this run. Why didn't you do that earlier? Why do we have to get cash in the first place? These are all great questions. Nothing wrong with the way you've written it. The only thing I thought I would be totally cool if you stretched it out. Why didn't you do that earlier while he's trying to free her? And he's like, da, 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 da. He has a response and it kind of goes back and forth. And finally he goes, calm down, would you? That would be the thing. So kind of a fun little thing to show him trying to disentangle her while they're having that back and forth, rather than have her just kind of say it all in a row. It's up to you. Um, but I really, really, just generally, really like very little actually on the content side, more structurally. I thought the writing in generally was good. Suggestions here rather than you'll notice Asmuth had forgot to ask us what we were doing here, and I thought that's a bit presumptuous, and it felt like it would be like he didn't think to, notice he didn't think to ask us what we were doing here, what it felt like it was like it begs the obvious. Like this guy's so horny and insecure for how smarter he is than everybody as the Elden are for humans in general. It's sort of like, oh, I was waiting for one of them to say the obvious, which is, yeah, so much for that. It's superior intelligence, right? You couldn't even figure out why we were here. But I love the flow. It's all great. A few little spelling things, nothing major. This description too, I love this. 2 dozen El Noon standing around the portal arch. 25 of them were facing to El Noon. One was Asmathat, the other. Like this is just a great visual. Like, whoa, this is the case. So this is like a force to be reckoned with. It feels way bigger. It feels grander. There's just more like three-dimensional quality to it than in the this is like taking it to a new level. So I really liked, and the description too. I can't remember if you had this description, but every other Elnoon was dressed in leather, moss, seaweed, or something equally organic. I just love the organic nature, kind of their way of life almost. Little, yeah, I love that. That's so fun. Little thing here, just there's a lot of Eldritch magic in a short space. You might want to see if there's other ways to kind of break that up if you want to. I know you can only do that so much when you're referring to something very specific like Eldritch magic. It's a tough one. Um, but generally really good. The only big note I had here, the Elder Tears explanation, love that. The only big question I had here was there were places, if I could encourage you to consider at least doing anything, is like go into those sections where they're having quite a long protracted conversation, good information, but it felt like what this scene wanted to be was a scene full of tense suspense and oh my god, what's going to happen next, and there's all this thing, and every once in a while it seemed to slow right down and kind of grind to a halt so they could explain something back and forth. Not majorly, it's not like I felt like I was like completely grinding to a halt is a bit much, but it felt like maybe there's a way to convey some of this information either later or more concisely so you can keep the pacing, because what's working so well, it's one of the strongest chapters I think you've written. You've got a very beautiful combination of giving me information I need and moving the action forward. And sometimes they feel like they kind of get in the way of each other almost a little bit. That's the only major critique I have of this chapter. Sometimes I was like, less explaining, more doing. But it's hard because how do you do both? I think you could probably get it down to 9 or 10 pages, but I'll leave that with you. Great hooks on your ending of your sections. Pressing the start button on the nuclear detonator, he leapt off the edge, his gun drawn as he descended on the El Noon. That is a super tight sentence. That's a great closing sentence. Not only is it well written, but it makes me go, whoa, of course I'm going to keep reading. So your ability to, create these really great hooks, just I think gets stronger. And you do it again later in this chapter. So I really have stopped me at any point. I'm just going to keep talking. Uh, Again, give or take, usually these things are not done in all caps. That's up to you if you want to do that. Because it is, the nature of especially YA fiction or online fiction can change. Depends on if you want to sort of set the idea that you're following the rules generally as a writer, you might want to not go all caps. Totally up to you. Let's see if I can come down here. Oh yeah, here was the other thing too with the action. Again, nothing wrong with it, but this was so good. The action of this chapter, and by the way, kudos, because it doesn't just feel like you're repeating the same thing over again either. Like you're really giving me new with each new section, giving me new characters, giving me new interactions, giving me new action. And it was really fun to kind of go through that. And the only thing I wondered, it's a question, it's not a critique, it's a question. Is it possible? I thought, whoa, where does he go from here? This feels like the end of a story, like Act 3 level, high action, lots being revealed. I'm finding out everything. It feels like about, what's going on. He's finding out everything. I'm like, okay, so this is the scene where everything's revealed and all the action happens is how it feels. And then I thought, ooh, where do you go from here? So I thought, if anything, maybe you might want to scale some of this stuff back or choose to maybe reveal some of this information, later. It's up to you. How do you feel about that? Well, I don't know. That's the thing. I wouldn't say, like, for example, back here, like right off the top, where's um it's obvious. Here we go. Let me go. Wait, you don't get to walk away from this conversation. Why did you let him go? He's going after Dick. We need to stop him. No, we don't. By the time he gets to the ziggurat, Dick will have freed the prisoners and be retreating out of the underground jungle. We'll have planted a bomb to be our way. Hang on, it's not that. It's further down. Like the Elder Tears, I think is a great example of doing it right, because you kind of do have to slow down and give an explanation, but it feels like it's just enough, and then they go on. Where is it? There's a very specific place that I'm thinking of. Bear with me. I thought it was earlier up. That's what I'm looking for. It's where it's. That's a challenge. Challenge. I don't remember. Here it is. And we learned as much, if not more, from that interrogation, such as we're dealing with a species called the El Noon. They're using this place as a beachhead for a large invasion plan, using the ziggurat to bore in more troops. The El Noon are controlling the lurkers and the locusts, and they're concerned about something called nectar. This is good. I'm not saying that you should necessarily pull any of that out. I thought, oh, okay, so it feels like everything big has been revealed. Like it felt like a lot of information, even though obviously it would be. I'm not, and I don't think anything. By the time I got to this point in the story, um, where are we here again? It felt you could, and you might just keep it the way it is. You might be, oh no, Paul, I got way bigger, better stuff happening later. If that's the case, don't change a thing. All I'm suggesting is that it's too good. There's too much. It felt like too like it was too good and too much, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just like, oh no, Hayden's totally going to top this later. It's sort of like pick the ending of any movie, big action film. Pick the ending of any film you can think of, and try to imagine that happening at the beginning of like Act 2 and be like, oh, well, where do we go from there? Right. So it's not a critique, it's more of a question. So And it's not even a question I think you have to answer now. What I'll be looking for is how do you top this? Because you've got a really wicked strong chapter. So yeah, not even. No, I mean it's key information. If it's key information that you have to reveal, I would have to go through it fine tooth comb, but to suggest what it might be. It just feels like there's a lot of for me. It was less about the amount of information as could you take a paragraph that explains something and bring it down to a sentence. We'd have to kind of surgically go through it, and this is assuming I'm even right. It just felt like a lot. And where the dialogue, specifically where the dialogue felt like it might be slowing the action down. I think so. That might be the easiest way to say it. Occam's razor is just how can you get to the point quickly and if necessary even cut chunks of dialogue and just get to the action. Like for example, here's one example. To me, the El Noon come off as sometimes they come off as terrifying and awesome in this chapter, but then this happens and I'm like, oh, they were so interesting, and still they started saying, serve me bacteria, pathetic amoeba, pathetic leather racers, we're your superiors, why would I lower myself to your primitive inferior? I'm like, holy shit, you are the most insecure alien race I've ever seen in my life, and you're not that good because they're kicking your ass while you're telling them that you're superior. So I thought I fair enough. I think if you I would the way they're coming across to me is not as a superior race. What they're coming across as, they have the benefit of having been around in the universe a little bit longer, but they're actually kind of inferior because they can't stop talking about how superior they are. So I felt like if these were people, I'd be like, oof, this guy's got the smallest penis in the world because he just can't stop telling everybody how big his cock is, right? And so that's how it comes across. So you might um that's one thing I would suggest, that and cutting out some of those might also be part of what, like, I would be more interested in seeing this fight than hearing them talk, because I'm also like, it's like those old timey movies where sometimes you'll see like two guys like have a sword fight and it'll be like, ah, knave, I shall get you in the hindquarters and then I shall do this and then I shall do that. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Just fight, for fuck's sake. I just want to see you guys fight. This might be that moment. Mhm. So it's kind of a Starship Troopers, just volume helps kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's what I loved about this chapter. The El Noon totally came alive for me in this chapter. I thought, oh wow. Yeah, this is like, I'm really, really getting a sense of how big they are, voluminous they are, what they're capable of. So no, extremely well done. I might do ellipses on this part. So under her figures, dot dot dot, beneath her feet, dot dot dot, stuff like that. This was great though. I love the way you structured this. This was great. I would be thrilled to see more of this, because this is one of the my favorite places where I feel like you are really in tune with how the reader is feeling while reading this. Like, you have really tapped into my brain, which is awesome for two reasons. Number one, for you as a writer, this chapter is all about a race who taps into your brain. So you are, um I feel like you are intentionally or not sort of mimicking the nature of the El Noon offensive, and it feels really, really cool. I love this. I would be thrilled for you to do this. The fight continues. I love this too. Its insides were like cold strawberry jam, with even his organs felt more like giant strawberries. I might find, um, you know, on a repetition level, fruit versus whatever else, berries, minor thing. This is great. The whole description of this is great. Again, great ending to this thing. How are you alive? Um, what is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me just see here. That's a great question. I like this ending better. I think I would go down to the end. And you were wondering if you think this should be the top of it, the next chapter? Unless you're going to add substantially more to it. And of course, I haven't seen the next chapter, so I'm a bit blind with that. But I kind of like it ending with the run. That's just me, though. Um, it is long. But I would, so if that was the goal, if you were trying to do that calculus, I wouldn't be, because that's the easiest trap to fall into for writers to go, oh, it's 2 pages too long, I'll cut the last 2 pages. No, don't you dare. Not if those last 2 pages are part of what make it good. Go anywhere before that last 2 pages and trim, shorten. And I think you can. I think you could easily go through the previous and say, what do I really need? Every writer should do this, myself included. After you've written the chapter and done a second draft, go back and say, okay, now that I know what this chapter is, what do I really need in this chapter? Too many writers don't do that, so they have chapters that are way too long, in my opinion. So going back and saying, of course, and they love it all, and why would they cut anything? Because they wrote it and they're brilliant, and why would they get rid of it? But I would do that. I wouldn't axe your ending. I wouldn't just to get it to 10 pages. It is. If you're going to end it there, it feels to me like you would want to end with it looking like Julie. I mean, the true cliffhanger ending would have this chapter end where it looked like Julius was actually killed, and the next one, then the next one starts with "How are you alive?" Because a cliffhanger should, the way it is "How are you alive?" It's like it ends on a good news. No, there's actually no hook there, technically speaking. Um, whereas and that would be really exciting, because then now your chapter is, in my opinion, is a tour de force, because they've Julius is totally in charge of this entire chapter, beginning to end, or Ramona. There's a few points where there's a little jeopardy, but I never really seriously question. But if it ends with like, oh my God, is Julius dead? Is Ramona on her own? That's a great way to end a chapter that started and mostly ran looking like Julius was gonna be okay. But if you give me an ending where it's like, oh, then yeah, I like your instincts there. So I would cut the "How are you alive?" and instead end it with something that really looks like Julius is fucking dead, or in trouble, in serious trouble, because that equals jeopardy, which equals hook, which makes me read the next chapter. Ooh, please, yes, take me under the engine with Julius, please. I've been waiting for that. I never even thought of that. Hayden, that's a wicked idea. Please do that. Yeah, okay, here, I'm sorry this sounds so I don't forget. Yeah. I love that too because then, hey, I don't know what you have in the next chapter, but I would be delighted if the next chapter was one where Ramona was like trying to solve a problem and keep Julius from dying too. Like if the whole next chapter Julius was like out of commission temporarily, good Lord, I would love to see that because I haven't seen that yet. I don't feel I've seen that yet, but that may, get in the way. Absolutely. Ooh, yep. Well, and I would make that the top of the next chapter. I mean, because the audience is asking, so Elder Tear is cool. Why is that important? But if something happens to him, having just talked about them, and she has to go back or whatever, and use them, like I want to see her. I don't want to. Here's what I don't want to see yet is Ramon, another chapter where Ramon is being strong and powerful. I want to see what she's capable of here when she suddenly has to be taking care of. It's like when a parent has a child, like I could fight this guy, but I'm, yeah, and having to take care of Julius, or at least Julius is not able to take care of her, right? That could be really, I don't think I have anything specific to prescribe because it depends. What's more dramatically interesting? Like what's more fun to watch? What makes it harder for Ramona to do what she needs to do? Solo, is that what you said? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you could. And so what I would do is I would start there. If I were you, I would start on the solo level and then see, because what's unique about this situation is solo, but worse than solo. She's also got to like, I've seen her solo. I feel like I've seen her solo enough to not need to see that happen again. What makes it interesting and the suspense there is that Julius is in jeopardy. Um, and it's hard to do two things at once. It's hard to devote 100% of your energy to two things at once. However you want to play that out, your call. But I love the yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Um, okay, so I'll leave you with that because I think that's interesting. But hopefully that helps knowing how to end chapter 18. And I'll be curious to see how that informs the next chapter, 19. How many total number of chapters do you have an idea? No pressure. Very good. That's cool. Very cool. Right on. Okay. Well, I'll leave that with you. I'll send you the notes here right away. Does this time work for you next week as well? Does it work? Awesome. Okay. Well, great to chat with you from Ontario. Yeah, good luck with this, man. 'Cause I love this chapter. This was strong. Yeah. No, let's jump into the next one. No problem. Okay. Well, good luck with the launch of this chapter. I'm proud of you. You bet. Bye bye.